Market Bulletin.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we've got a pretty interesting mix of sources for our deep dive. We're going to be talking about robots, how things are going in investing these days, and even a bit about Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're getting a sneak peek at what the future might hold, you know?
For sure.
Like on the one hand, we've got BlackRock, the biggest asset manager out there, and they're kind of stepping back from this big sustainability thing they were part of.
Yeah, they decided to leave that net zero asset managers initiative, the one that was all about getting companies to cut down their emissions, like all the way to zero by 2050.
Yeah, exactly. And that initiative had a ton of support. A lot of, financial heavy hitters had signed on.
Right.
So BlackRock, them dropping out, it's definitely gotten people talking.
For sure.
Some people are saying it's a sign that this whole ESG investing thing, the environmental, social, and governance stuff, it might be losing some of its momentum.
Yeah. And ESG has been, well, let's just say it's been a bit controversial, right?
Yeah.
Some people say it's just a way for companies to make themselves look good without actually changing anything.
Right, exactly.
Like greenwashing.
Totally, yeah. Some critics say that when you force companies to focus on things like emissions or social impact, it can actually end up hurting their profits. And when that happens, the investors end up losing out too.
Yeah.
So they argue that, the main focus should really be on those financial returns, making money for investors.
Right.
But then, of course, you've got the other side of the argument.
Yeah.
The people who say that ESG is super important, like absolutely crucial if we're going to tackle, massive global problems like climate change.
Definitely.
So, it's a debate that's not going away anytime soon.
It makes you wonder, is this just like a temporary thing with BlackRock? Or is this the start of a bigger trend, where everyone's going to start moving away from ESG? Like, what do you think is behind their decision?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think it's probably at least partly a reaction to the political pushback that ESG has been getting, especially in the U.S.,
Right.
You've got some politicians who are really outspoken against it. They call it woke capitalism, and some are even trying to pass laws to restrict it.
Yeah.
When you've got that kind of pressure, it can definitely influence a company like BlackRock.
That's a good point, yeah. It'll be really interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah.
But, while BlackRock is kind of stepping back from this whole sustainability thing, Elon Musk's going all in on robots and how they could change the world.
Yeah.
He's saying Tesla's going to be making thousands of humanoid robots just this year.
Wow.
And then, get this, he thinks that number could jump to millions in just a few years.
Millions of robots. That's a pretty big prediction, even for Elon Musk.
It is, right. He's basically saying these robots are going to revolutionize, well, everything, how we work, how we live, everything.
Yeah, think about it. Robots building houses, working in restaurants.
Oof. Maybe even a robot chef that could, I don't know, make me dinner every night.
Haha, there you go.
I can dream, right?
Yeah.
But seriously,
Yeah.
the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
They really are. And what's even more fascinating is the technology behind these robots,
Yeah.
Musk has talked about how their hands are going to have like 22 degrees of freedom, which basically means they'll be incredibly dexterous. Like they'll be able to move and manipulate objects almost as well as we can.
That's incredible. But I mean, it also brings up a pretty big question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, what happens to all of us humans if robots are doing all the work?
Right.
Are we all just going to be out of jobs?
Well, yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some experts are worried about, mass unemployment, social unrest, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
They're saying this kind of rapid automation could lead to huge economic inequality where the people who own the robots get richer and richer while everyone else struggles just to get by.
It's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Right.
Like a dystopia or something.
Okay. I know, right? But, it's not necessarily all doom and gloom.
Okay, good.
There's also the argument that robots could actually free us from a lot of those boring, repetitive tasks that we all hate doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that would give us more time to focus on things that, really require human creativity, human connection.
So like more time for art, music, exploring new ideas. That actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah, right. And there's also the potential for robots to take on those jobs that are really dangerous or physically demanding,
Yeah.
So things like mining, disaster relief, even space exploration. Robots could handle those risks, keeping us humans safe.
So it's not just about robots replacing us. It's about them doing jobs that we can't or shouldn't be doing.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a whole different way of looking at it.
Yeah, and there's also the possibility that a whole bunch of new industries and jobs will emerge focused on designing, building, and maintaining all these robots.
Right.
It's not like robots are just going to magically appear and take over everything. We're going to need a whole workforce to support them.
So maybe it's not a robot takeover, but more like a robot partnership.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's about finding the right balance, figuring out how humans and robots can work together to actually create a better future for everyone.
Right.
But it's definitely something we need to be thinking about now, before it's too late.
Absolutely. And speaking of things that are changing fast, let's shift gears and talk about Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride lately, hasn't it?
It has, like a roller coaster.
You've got the price going up and down like crazy, and then there's all this talk about the U.S. government potentially selling off this huge chunk of Bitcoin that they seized from criminals.
Yeah, it's something like 69,000 Bitcoin, right?
Right.
That's worth billions. It makes you wonder what would happen to the market if they actually sold all of that.
Right. Yeah, it could definitely push the price down. And then you've got all the uncertainty and fear that's already surrounding Bitcoin. So it's no wonder some people are getting nervous.
I get it. But here's what I find interesting. Even with all the ups and downs and the negative news, there are more and more Bitcoin millionaires popping up all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of a paradox, isn't it?
It is.
But I think it shows that people still believe in the long-term potential of Bitcoin,
Yeah.
Last year, an average of 152 new Bitcoin millionaires were created every single day.
Every day.
Every single day.
That's crazy. What do you think is driving that kind of growth when things seem so unpredictable?
I think there are a few key things. First, you've got the limited supply of Bitcoin.
Okay.
There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, and that scarcity makes it valuable.
So it's like digital gold, kind of.
Exactly. Then you've got the fact that more and more institutional investors, like the big players, are starting to take Bitcoin seriously.
Right.
And that's bringing in a lot of new money. And finally, you can't forget about the underlying technology, the blockchain.
Yeah.
It's incredibly secure and transparent, which gives people confidence that their Bitcoin is safe.
It's amazing how this whole Bitcoin thing started as this kind of fringe idea.
Right.
And now it's becoming more mainstream.
Absolutely.
But what does it all mean? How do these stories, BlackRock, robots, Bitcoin, how do they all fit together in the grand scheme of things?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And that's what we're going to explore next. We're going to look at the macro trends, the big forces that are shaping our world, and see how these stories fit into the bigger picture.
Okay, so we've talked about BlackRock kind of backing away from those sustainability goals, Elon Musk's, his robot army.
Right.
And of course, Bitcoin's crazy ride.
Right.
But how does it all connect? What's the bigger picture here?
It's really interesting because all these stories, they kind of point to this huge shift that's happening in the world, like a technological revolution or maybe even, I don't know, an economic one.
Oh.
We're seeing these powerful new technologies emerging, and they're going to change everything, like how we work, how we live, just everything.
So it's not just about like robots and Bitcoin. It's like the whole system is changing, right?
Exactly, yeah. Like take Musk's robot prediction, for example.
Okay.
It's easy to just focus on the robots themselves, but the real story is how they're going to impact the global workforce.
Right.
I mean, we're already seeing birth rates declining in a lot of countries, which means, fewer workers down the line. And then you add aging populations to the mix.
Yeah.
And, you've got a recipe for some serious labor shortages.
Okay.
Robots could be the answer. They could fill that gap.
So it's like robots are stepping in to do the jobs that humans won't be able to do in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not even just about filling those existing jobs. It's about whole new industries popping up.
Right.
Imagine companies dedicated to building and maintaining these robots, developing the software for them, figuring out the legal stuff, the ethical frameworks, all of that.
Wow. Yeah. It's pretty mind-blowing to think about.
It is.
But, I mean, isn't there a risk that, some countries will get ahead in this whole robot race, and leave everyone else behind?
Absolutely. That's a real concern. In fact, China, they're already investing a ton in robotics.
Yeah.
They see it as the key to dominating the global economy in this century,
Uh-huh.
And if they manage to create a a highly automated workforce, well, it could give them a huge advantage economically and maybe even, I don't know, militarily.
So this isn't just about technology, it's about like global power too.
Yeah, it's all connected.
That's a lot to think about. But okay, what about BlackRock and their move away from ESG? How does that fit into all of this?
I think it definitely does. BlackRock's decision, I think it reflects, at least partly, this growing emphasis on, short-term profits.
Right.
There's this pressure to prioritize, making money now, even if it means pushing those long-term sustainability goals aside.
So it's like short-term thinking is winning out over long-term planning.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
But isn't that kind of dangerous, especially when we're facing these huge issues like climate change, which, really require a long-term perspective?
Yeah, it definitely raises some red flags, you're right. It makes you wonder if we're, I don't know, sacrificing our future for the sake of short-term gains.
Okay, so we've got robots, this global competition thing, and then this whole short-term thinking versus long-term sustainability issue. That's a lot. But where does Bitcoin fit into all of this?
Well, Bitcoin, it represents this desire for a decentralized system, something that's independent, outside the control of governments and big institutions. It's like a reaction, in some ways, to the very forces we've been talking about.
Okay.
People are looking for alternatives, for ways to protect themselves from, economic uncertainty, political instability, all that.
So it's like a hedge against the system,
Right.
way to opt out.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, at least financially.
But what about the average person who's not a Bitcoin millionaire? How do they deal with all these changes?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And that's actually what we're going to dive into next. We're going to talk about what all of this means for you, the listener, and what you can do to, prepare for this future that's coming at us pretty fast.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot in this deep dive: robots, BlackRock, Bitcoin, and like how the whole world seems to be changing.
It is a lot to take in.
It is, for sure. But now let's get practical. Like, what can our listeners actually do to get ready for all of this?
Right, that's the big question.
Yep.
I mean, it's easy to feel overwhelmed with everything changing so fast. But the good news is, there are things you can do, not just to, survive all this, but to actually thrive in this new world.
Okay, so what's the first step?
Yeah.
Should we all be, learning to code or something?
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, buying one of those Bitcoin mining things?
Well, those things might be helpful for some people, but honestly, I think the most important thing is to cultivate a mindset of continuous learning,
Yeah.
The skills that are in high demand today, they might be totally obsolete tomorrow.
Right.
So it's all about being adaptable, always learning and evolving.
So, we need to become professional students, basically. Always hitting the books.
Haha, yeah, kinda. And the great thing is that learning has never been easier. We have so many resources available, online courses, podcasts, even those virtual reality things.
It's true.
You can learn pretty much anything you want from anywhere in the world.
So, if I wanted to learn about, I don't know, artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
I could just, go online and find a course.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are courses for, every level, from beginner to super advanced. You can just dip your toes in or really go deep. It's up to you.
That's cool. And I guess you can connect with other people who are learning too, right?
Absolutely. Don't underestimate the power of community, Join online forums, go to webinars, connect with people who share your interests.
Right.
Learning is always more fun and more effective when you're doing it with other people.
Yeah, it's like you're building your own little knowledge network or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And remember, learning isn't just about acquiring specific skills. It's also about developing those critical thinking abilities, problem-solving skills, learning how to be more adaptable.
Right.
Those are the skills that are going to be essential no matter what happens in the job market, regardless of, what new technologies pop up.
So it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think and how you learn new things. Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about investing? We talked about how Bitcoin can be really volatile, which, that can be kind of scary for some people.
Yeah, sure.
But are there ways to, invest in this whole crypto space without, losing your shirt?
Definitely, yeah. The key is to, do your research, understand the risks involved, and start small.
Okay.
Only invest what you can afford to lose. That's rule number one.
Right. Don't bet the farm.
Exactly. And think about diversifying your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Spread the risk. Got it.
Right.
But what about this whole thing with robots taking our jobs? How do we prepare for a future where maybe having a traditional job isn't even a thing anymore.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. But, if you think about it, robots are really good at tasks that are, like, repetitive and rule-based.
Okay.
But humans, we're good at things that require, creativity, empathy, critical thinking, complex problem solving.
So, like, we should focus on being more human, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Develop those uniquely human skills that robots can't replicate.
Okay.
And be open to new possibilities, The future of work might involve more freelancing, gig work, even creating your own business.
Right.
It's all about being adaptable and finding ways to, use your skills in this changing world.
So, like, we need to become, I don't know, entrepreneurs of our own lives or something.
Yeah, I like that. And, this isn't just about individuals figuring out how to survive. It's about creating a better future for everyone.
Right.
We've talked about climate change, social inequality, all the challenges that come with a rapidly changing world.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is. And these are issues that, well, they require collective action.
So, like, what can we do as individuals to actually make a difference?
There are so many things you can do. You can support companies that are, committed to sustainability. You can advocate for policies that promote environmental protection and social justice. And you can get involved in your community. Even small actions can have a big impact.
It sounds like this future, it's not something that just happens to us. It's something that we create.
You got it, yeah. By talking about these things, making informed choices, and actually taking action, we can shape a future that's not just technologically advanced, but also sustainable, equitable, and, fulfilling for everyone.
This deep dive has been, it's been quite a ride.
Yeah.
We've explored some pretty complex and challenging stuff, but I think, we've come out of it with a sense of, maybe possibility and even a little bit of excitement.
I agree, yeah. The future definitely holds challenges, but there are also so many opportunities.
Right.
And by, staying curious, being adaptable, and always learning new things, we can navigate these changes and create a future that we can all be proud of.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone. We hope it sparked some new ideas and inspired you to take some action. And remember, the future is what we make it.
Market Bulletin.